Hi, this is Greg Hunter of USAWatchdog.com for the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, 7/11/2014. And remember I told you I was fearful that this kidnapping and murder of three Israeli teens, allegedly by Hamas, and then also the revenge kidnapping of a Palestinian youth that was burned alive. I was fearful that it would turn into, wider violence in Israel, between Israel and Hamas, and here we go. I mean, this is the Israelis that are doing counter airstrikes in Gaza against Hamas after Hamas started firing multiple rockets, many rockets into Israel. And so the violence there has really picked up. My fears have been confirmed. And here's the new wrinkle about Hamas and its rockets. They had a vicious rocket attack in 2012, and then there was a ceasefire negotiated, in part with the help of Egypt and the United States, and so the ceasefire has been just simmering all this time. But the new wrinkle is the rockets by Hamas. Now, these are Israeli citizens that are worried. This is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. These are Israeli citizens that are on the highway worried about rocket attacks. But, look over here. This is Israel, right? This is Gaza. And in the past, their rockets could only go, max 50 miles, maybe hit Tel Aviv. They were usually in this brown ring here. Well, now the rockets go all the way almost 70 miles. They have a new rocket that apparently the Iranians have given to Hamas in Gaza that can go 100 miles. But the targets they've been hitting are up in, 70 miles away at this point. Basically, Hamas can hit just about any target in Israel with these rockets. So the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, they have been mounting counter airstrikes with airplanes, and Israel has called up 40,000 troops, at least 40,000 troops. Now, I heard earlier they called up 1,500 troops. I wasn't worried about that. They put them on the border between Israel and Gaza. But when they called up 40,000 troops, they're going to have a ground assault. It is pretty clear they're going to have a ground assault, and they're going to go into Gaza and knock out Hamas. And they've already, with the airstrikes, there's already been dozens of people in Gaza killed. None in Israel. The missiles that they're firing are pretty crude, and then the Israelis have a lot of air shelter. Half of the Israelis were in air shelters at one point this past week. So President Obama has offered to negotiate a peace plan, and they did that the last time through Egypt. And they got, Hamas to quit firing. Hamas's stated goal is to wipe Israel out and doesn't recognize its right to exist. They have recently joined up with the Palestinian Authority, but that said, all the violence is going from Israel to Gaza and from Gaza to Israel. A lot of sin to go around, folks. This is an ugly situation. And I think the Israelis are fearing a wider war. They're already looking down the chessboard, and they're seeing ISIS out in western Iraq and, the Islamic State in eastern Syria. They've taken a large swath of real estate out there. They got radioactive material from the University of Mosul, about 88 pounds. They also got into a former chemical weapons factory and found some chemical weapons. Who knows if they're degraded or if they can be put onto a missile. I wouldn't want to test that theory out that they're totally degraded and harmless. Also, the nuclear material. Are the Israelis fearful that Hamas could put nuclear material on a missile, and even if their iron shield shoots it down, that it splatters all over parts of Israel? What happens if they have, some of this nuclear, some of this chemical weapons that they've gotten, they be able to break them apart or use them in a way to fire into Israel. Israel has got to be worried about that, and I think they're worried about a wider war. And I don't see a ceasefire happening until Israel knocks out Hamas's ability to fire rockets on them. I just don't see it. Obama's trying. Good for him. He did do something this week. He wouldn't go down to the border. I'll talk about that in a minute. But he has offered to, be an intermediary between, Hamas and Israel. But I just don't see, even Hamas, I don't see them. They're wanting to stand their ground. So they've had some of their leaders' homes blown up. And, of course, they've had a lot of casualties down there. They want to stand their ground. I don't see any ceasefire until this gets a whole lot worse. And I don't see any ceasefire until the Israelis knock out Hamas's ability to fire rockets and these longer-range rockets into Israel. the whole Middle East is a tinderbox. You have the Saudis that are worried about, this Islamic State folks going into, either into Saudi Arabia or going into Jordan and destabilizing that. Israel has to be very worried. They're sitting in the middle of a boiling cauldron all around them. So that's what's going on with, Hamas and Israel. And I think it's not going to be any kind of a peace process, or ceasefire between Hamas and Israel until Hamas's ability to fire rockets has been severely crippled, if not completely depleted. It's going to be bloody. And I feel sorry for people on both sides in Israel. Closer to home, in the U.S. border, illegal aliens continue to cross in mass. Thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants are coming, mostly from Central America. Women and children and teens are coming, across the border every day. The president was in Texas, refused to go to the border. Even top Democrats like James Carville said, that's a mistake. That is a mistake. And, the Democrats, some of these Democrats say, well, the only way to stop these people from coming across the border is immigration reform. To make what's illegal now legal? That's going to stop all these people coming across the border. Governor Rick Perry forced a meeting with President Obama, and he has said publicly the president should call out the National Guard, put 1,000 men on the border, and bolster the immigration people and stop people from coming across the border. First step, stop them from coming across the border. Obama took a meeting with Rick Perry, and there's a photo on my website. You should see it. On one side of the table, there's Rick Perry and his lieutenants, and they're not happy. And on the other side, President Obama laughing as other people are smiling that this is supposed to be a humanitarian crisis. What's so funny? What is so funny? Of course, the president wants $3.7 billion to, help alleviate this problem, but nothing is in that. There is no real effort to seal the border. It's just for, beds and more facilities and a few more lawyers. And, these people are have these free passes around the country, and they're supposed to show up, to immigration officials, 60 days, 90 days. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. It's a de facto amnesty. This is outrageous. I mean, this is some sort of a winning issue for the Democrats. Democrats are worried about this, as they should be. African Americans are now starting to be quoted as saying, hey, what's up with this illegal immigration? I mean, somebody has to pay for this. We don't have unlimited money. Somebody is going to have to pay for this. Somebody is going to have to get less so these other people that are flooding in from the border can get, taken care of. Then there was some agreement between Guatemala and Mexico to, fast line people through Mexico with a 72-hour pass. That's outrageous. I mean, we should be telling Central American countries, we're going to cut off all aid if you don't stop this. Mexico, we're going to stop these people at the border and turn them back, and they're going to be your problem. This is absolutely outrageous, and the president is supposed to faithfully execute the laws of the nation. That means he's supposed to execute the laws whether he likes it or not get out his pen and his phone. And clearly, he is responsible for this crisis, and he won't even go to the border. He's playing pool up in Denver and having photo ops, and then he's saying, well, this isn't a photo op. I'm not going to go to the border because it's a photo op. Really? And there's all these tweets with people, showing all these photo ops with him playing pool and him, other, photo op, things that he does, but he doesn't want to go to the border, which is outrageous. I mean, this is the guy the Democrats are rallying behind? I mean, really, if the president, I said this last week, it's worth saying again. If the president would have come out in the beginning of his, 2008 term or his 2012 term, let's just say 2012, and said, I'm going to seal the border. I want to get immigration reform, and I am going to ask Congress for fencing and Border Patrol agents and surveillance. That's all I want. I want to seal the border. And then if he really sealed the border, hey, he'd have had, Democrats falling all over themselves to vote for the second part of immigration reform, but he didn't do that. He's saying, give me $3.7 billion now, and, you need to negotiate. In other words, you need to do it my way or the highway. He's not faithfully enforcing the laws of America. And then there are reports of them, with these young girls coming up, on these trains of being raped. that people are being taken advantage of by coyotes. They found prayer mats on the border. So could it be terrorists, gang members, drugs? The border's wide open. All these agents are taking care of, children in diapers, and not to mention the dismal conditions these illegal immigrants are living in. This is outrageous. I don't understand how this is a winning strategy for the president and Democrats in November of this year. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's certainly not a winning a format for saying, hey, listen, this is going to cost everybody a lot more money. Just like Obamacare, but that was supposed to be cheaper. Next up on the economic front, there's a big Portuguese bank. As a matter of fact, the biggest bank in Portugal stopped payment on a bond, and that's a debt default, and that's a problem. And if you think it can't hurt you here in America, you are so wrong. The banking system is interconnected, and there's more debt now in the global system, according to the Bank of International Settlements, than there was in 2008 when it melted down. In 2008, we had about $70 trillion, according to the BIS. Now there's more than $100 trillion. An explosion of debt. We had a debt problem that we fixed by adding more debt to it. And my friend Gregory Mannarino at TradersChoice.net did a video about this. I'm going to link to it on the USA Watchdog site. You should take a look at it. It's one of his bests, and he has many, many very good videos. But this is part of what he said. He says the debt is unimaginable. It's exploded unimaginable levels, and this is his quote, this is Europe's Lehman Brothers moment that is multiple-fold larger. Again, Gregory Mannarino says this is Europe's Lehman Brothers moment that is multiple-fold larger. Of course, Lehman Brothers, one brokerage, is what caused the daisy chain of defaults that caused the 2008 meltdown and caused the Federal Reserve to pump out all this money and have TARP money and cut interest rates to zero, which they still are, or near zero for a key rate. This is multiple fold. This might be 10 or 20 Lehman Brothers. I actually called him on the phone, and he said, "Oh, it's huge. This is huge," and he says there's no stopping it. And he says that these banks are so interconnected with all this debt and these credit default swaps and all this, layer on layer of leverage and debt that's all between these banks that, it'll be a global crisis. It won't be just a crisis in Europe. It'll go around the globe and cause massive defaults and banking problems. And listen, Mannarino says the banks are going to try to save their own skin. And how are they going to do that? They're going to grab a hold of depositor money. And this is the simple math here in the U.S. We have about $10 trillion on deposit. The FDIC has a little less than, $50 billion. $10 trillion insured by less than $50 billion. Now, where are they going to get the money to give everybody their money? And if they do print up an extra, 6, 7, 8, 10 trillion, whatever it is, what do you think that money is going to be worth? Greg Mannarino says the banks could get shut down. They could have banking holidays. They could devalue the currency. You could end up with very little in the bank, that the bondholders would get paid first, and then the preferred shareholders would be second in line, depositors, poof, last in line, and you'd have to go to the government to get your money. You may, according to Greg Mannarino, be taking some of your money out of the bank and holding it in actual cash. Finally, and I just got to tell you about this. This is Ray Nagin. I got a little story to tell you, so bear with me here. Ray Nagin, this is the former mayor of New Orleans, who was mayor during Katrina. You may remember his famous quote that he wanted to make New Orleans a chocolate city. Well, he was, back out here, he was convicted of 10 years. He was given 10 years for conviction of money laundering, bribery, fraud. Ray Nagin, former mayor of New Orleans, got a 10-year sentence for, in part, money laundering. So let me show you this story. It's one of my pet peeves about the big banks, right? And so here we go. We're over here. Several banks face intensified investigations over what? Laundering money. And here I got it circled right here. Let me get nice and close here. You kind of read this together. This is in USA Today in the money section this past week, and they name banks such as HSBC and Standard Charter and some other banks. And what do they say? They're laundering money for countries that are sanctioned, that are on the terror list too. Laundering money for terrorists. Now, that's beyond criminal. That's treason. And all these banks, or most of them, have U.S. offices, and not to mention the fact, listen, that's just one crime, laundering money for terrorists. Nobody goes to jail over that. That doesn't get you a criminal investigation, just a fine. PNB Paribas, the big French bank, just paid a $9 billion fine, but no criminal charges. And you know who pays those fines? Shareholders. We had, J.P. Morgan, who admitted and paid fines and restitutions and admitted to helping Bernie Madoff in his $60 billion fraud. Nobody goes to jail, no criminal charges. And Ray Nagin is off the streets for 10 years. Whoa, man. Jesse Jackson Jr., he's in company with him for using illegally using campaign donations, and Kevin Trudeau for making outrageous claims. He got 10 years. Jesse Jackson Jr. got several years in prison. But bankers that launder money for terrorists, so forget about the financial fraud, the selling liar loans, the packaging up into securities that the Federal Reserve is still buying. Forget about all that. Forget about the rigging of LIBOR, the rigging of the gold market, the rigging of the stock market, insider trading. Forget about all of that. Laundering money for countries on the terror list doesn't get you a criminal indictment. Ray Nagin's in jail for 10 years. Hey, listen, if he did what he did, okay, fine. I don't want to carry his water. Same with Jesse Jackson Jr. and Kevin Trudeau. But what? You launder money for terrorists and you only get a fine and nobody at the bank goes to jail or is prosecuted? That's outrageous. I mean, that is outrageous. Nobody in the Washington press corps will ask a question. Nobody on CNN, nobody on CNBC, nobody on Fox will bring this point up. Only I know this. I'm the only reporter that can figure out that, wow, Ray Nagin's going to jail for 10 years, but Jamie Dimon helps Bernie Madoff and his cronies at the bank. Jamie Dimon lies about, a $2 billion trading loss that turned into $6 billion, and he was involved. Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan pay massive fines for, fraudulent mortgage transactions. They don't go to jail, no criminal prosecution. But Ray Nagin's off the street. Whew. Thank you, Justice Department. We can all breathe a little easier now. Listen, thank you so much for supporting USA Watchdog with all your comments. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I got some of the smartest people on the internet commenting on USA Watchdog. The comments are often better than the posts and the interviews. I hate to say that, but really good information there. I also want to thank everybody for supporting the site with their donations. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Have a nice weekend.